Number 6, we're looking for an inference. Which of the following is most strongly supported by the information we are about to read? So we're about to be given a bunch of information about honey. The first sentence tells us that dark honey tends to be higher in antioxidants than light honey, and the most healthy strains of honey are all very high in antioxidants. So if we put 2 and 2 together, it kind of sounds like the dark honey tends to be the honeys that are the most healthy, right? Because it says the most healthy honeys are high in antioxidants, which tends to be the darker honey. So we're just given a bunch of information so far about honey, dark versus light, and higher antioxidant versus lower antioxidant, healthy versus less healthy. But then the next sentence tells us, however, certain strains of honey that are produced by bees harvesting primarily sage nectar are among the most healthy strains of honey, even though they're also among the lightest, right? So even though, according to sentence 1, the darker honey tends to be healthier, because it tends to be higher antioxidant, which tends to be healthier, even though that's true, there are some strains of honey that are among the most healthy, even though they are light. So very simple information here. There's a bunch of different information here about dark versus light, high antioxidant versus low antioxidant, and we have a general rule in the first sentence, and then we have an outlier to that rule in the second sentence. So there's a lot of directions that this question can go in terms of giving us an inference. So let's just go ahead and look through the answers and find something that, if all of this is true, let's find something that therefore has to also be true. And we'll consult the paragraph and see which one of these 5 answers is proven by the information given. Does A have to be true here? A says that there are some strains of honey that are produced by bees harvesting sage nectar, which we read about in that second sentence. A says that some of those strains are unusually high in antioxidants. Well, what do we know about those strains, about those some certain strains in the second sentence that are produced by bees that are harvesting primarily sage nectar? What does it say about them? It says that they are among the most healthful strains of honey. That's one of the things that they tell us about that honey, that they are among the most healthful strains of honey. And if you put that together with sentence 1 tells us that the most healthful strains of honey are all unusually high in antioxidants. So if you put 2 and 2 together, that must mean that there are some strains of honey made by these sage nectar bees that are unusually high in antioxidants, right? Because some of those strains produced by the sage nectar bees are among the most healthful strains of honey. All of the most healthful strains of honey are unusually high in antioxidants. So if you put that together, that proves that A is true, that there must be some strains of honey made by these sage nectar bees that are very high in antioxidants. Why do we know that they're high in antioxidants? Because they're among the most healthful strains of honey. And according to sentence 1, that proves that they are unusually high in antioxidants. So A takes 2 pieces of information from the paragraph, puts them together, and makes an inference, which is 100% correct. So A is the right answer. B, do we know that most plants, the majority of plants, more than 50% of plants, produce nectar that when it's harvested by bees results in light-colored honey? Where would you get this from in the paragraph? The paragraph doesn't tell you anything about the majority of plants, right? It says that light-colored honey tends to be lower in antioxidants. That doesn't mean that most plants make nectar that results in light-colored honey. It never tells you anything about more than 50% of plants, so this cannot be the answer. C tells us that light honey tends to be more healthy than dark honey. Now, let's look back at the first sentence. The first sentence says that dark honey is higher in antioxidants, and then it says that the most healthy strains of honey are all high in antioxidants. So if anything, that makes it sound like dark honey tends to be more healthy than light honey, in spite of the outlier that was mentioned in the second sentence. According to sentence 1, it kind of sounds like dark honey tends to be healthier than light honey because it's higher in antioxidants, which tends to be the healthiest honeys. So C goes against that. C is definitely not proven by the paragraph. If anything, it kind of seems backwards. D tells us that certain strains of honey that are produced by these sage nectar bees that are mentioned in the second sentence. What do we know before we even read the end of D? What do we know about those strains of honey? According to the paragraph, we know that they're among the most healthy strains of honey, even though they're light-colored. And if they're among the most healthy strains of honey, that would also have to mean that they're high in antioxidants, according to sentence 1. Because according to sentence 1, the most healthy strains of honey are all very high in antioxidants. So that's 3 things that we know about these strains of honey made by bees harvesting sage nectar, right? D tells us, though, that they are unusually low in antioxidants, which is the opposite of one of the 3 things we just said, right? We know that the certain strains of honey made by these sage nectar bees, at least the ones mentioned in the paragraph, right? Maybe these bees harvesting sage nectar make all kinds of strains of honey, But the ones that we are told about in the paragraph, the strains of honey made by these bees mentioned in the paragraph, must be high in antioxidants because it says they are among the most healthful strains of honey, which means, according to sentence 1, they're high in antioxidants. D says that there are certain strains of honey produced by sage nectar bees that are unusually low in antioxidants. We have no evidence for that. In fact, we have evidence for the opposite of that, so therefore D is definitely wrong. E, do we know that the strain of honey that has the number one highest antioxidant content in the world is a light-colored honey? Right? E is saying the one strain of honey that has the highest, the number one highest antioxidant content. Do we even know what that strain is, and do we know what color it is? No, the paragraph never told us. The paragraph did tell us that there are some strains, in the second sentence, there are some strains that are among the healthiest strains of honey, which means they are unusually high in antioxidants, even though they are light-colored. But we don't know if any of those strains are the strain of honey that has the highest antioxidant content. Maybe they're just unusually high, but maybe there's some other strain of honey that has the highest antioxidant content that's not a light-colored honey. Maybe it's a dark-colored honey. In fact, that would gel a little better with the first sentence because the first sentence tells us that dark honey tends to be higher in antioxidants. So according to the first sentence, it sounds like maybe the strain of honey that has the highest antioxidant content would be more likely to be dark-colored. So there's no evidence either way for E being true or false, so therefore it cannot be the answer. If you found this video useful, don't forget to hit subscribe. And for thousands more clear LSAT explanation videos, go to masterlsat.com.